Hello, Vinny. Okay, bye. Hi, I'm Phil. Welcome to Pretty Good Cooking.
Pretty good.
Tonight in the show, I'm going to teach you how to make kombucha. That's right, fellow millennials. You can save money by making this at home, just like avocado toast. We're making all the buzz food. Okay, so we had one YouTube follower who suggested that I start drinking kombucha as a mixer with alcohol, and I took him up on that. Thanks,
Scott MTHW.
So I've been experimenting with making kombucha for about 3 months now, and I feel like I'm finally ready to introduce you guys to how to make it at home. This method is going to be contingent on you having access to a starter culture called a Scoby. If you don't have that, that's okay. We'll talk about that as well. Just so you can see what kombucha is. Kombucha is fermented tea, and you can see all these horrific globs of whatever the hell that is. Those are called Scobies, and they're basically a big mass of, I don't really know. Do you guys know what they are?
Symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast.
Oh, it's bacteria and yeast.
Scoby, baby.
Oh yeah, that's what it stands for. Thanks, I'm dumb. But basically, they munch on the sugars in the tea. You make it with sweet tea, and that carbonates the beverage. It ferments it, and it gets a little alcohol in there. But not enough alcohol to really matter. Anyways, let's make a new batch. So I got this jar here. This has been going since a week ago? 9 days ago. And typically it takes about 3 weeks or so for it to get good, and then another week or so for it to get better. So we'll start off by making a sweet tea, and you can start basically with just a cup of water. Now, actually 2 cups of water? Yeah, 2 cups of water, not a cup of water. It's a very precise process. We'll heat that up. I've got some tea bags. I'm gonna use 4 tea bags. You can use 3 tea bags. You can use as many tea bags, or a lot of these kombucha shits, they put in all kinds of teas. So we like red tea, green tea, black tea, white tea. All the teas in there. I prefer to use 1 tea because I haven't branched out from using black tea. So I don't know what anything else is like at this point. You will also need some sugar. The sugar I have is Smidge and Spoon, which I believe is Kroger's cute effort at making a fun value brand. So to that water, we're gonna add 1 whole cup of sugar. If you think of kombucha and you talk to people and they're like, it's a health drink, and then you're like, wait a minute, that's a lot of sugar. Keep in mind, we're gonna water this down, for 1. And for 2, the fermenting process consumes some of those sugars, turns them into alcohol. So you're not gonna consume a whole cup of sugar. Also, you're making a fairly large batch. I'm gonna prepare my tea bags by removing them from their individual packaging. This is like boiling enough. We can basically make the tea now. It's gotta brew about 5 minutes. And if it goes for 7 minutes, that's fine. So we'll let that brew, make some kombucha. In true PGC fashion, I don't know the recipe and I never did, but I think you needed actually 4 cups in that original amount. So I'm adding water and it is gonna cool it down, but it's really not a big deal because it's still brewing, it's no problem. Because I'm pretty sure you start with 4 cups and then you add 8 cups. That's what you do. All right, the tea is done. So I got my jar. Oh wait, no, shit. You mix my sugar in. That would have been bad. So once the tea's done brewing, then you can put in your sugar. And you get a spoon, you mix it up. You want that sugar to dissolve, and if it doesn't dissolve, you might have to heat it back up. It's dissolving, don't worry. See? See? All right, sugar's dissolved. Just like some country that's not around anymore. Cool reference, me. All right, so pour your tea into the jar. And if you don't get it all in, oh well. All right, now to this tea, you're gonna add 8 cups of water. And every recipe I've seen has been like, use filtered water. And I've never done that, and it hasn't done me any harm thus far. So 2, 4, I don't know, if your water's all f***ed up, you might make weird kombucha. I guess that's probably the reason. My water seems relatively fine. All right, so there's your tea base. Now at this point, if you are not so lucky to have an abundance of Scobies or friend with Scobies that can hook you up, you would just take some store-bought kombucha and throw it in there. Not like a whole lot, maybe just kind of like the bottom of a bottle or 2. Because there's weird shit in the bottom of a bottle. Let me show you. So here in the bottom of a finished kombucha, you can see there's all this weird, you know, particulate, and basically it's like a baby Scoby, the start of a new Scoby. That's enough active enzyme that you can like just, well not enzyme, an active culture that you can throw it in there and it'll eventually ferment. It'll just take a little bit longer. But now that I've made a couple batches of this stuff, this is my 4th batch of kombucha. I have too many Scobies, and they're overwhelming this particular brew, so I'm just gonna stick my hand in there and grab some. So here you can see, this is what a Scoby looks like. It looks disgusting. There's like layers of weird shit on it. Let's take one of those, put in the new one. Actually, I'm gonna grab a couple of them.
I've never had kombucha before. What does it taste like?
So kombucha tastes like tea, but it is fermented, so it's carbonated. It's a little bit sweet, but there's also some funk that definitely is a major component of it. Like anything fermented. It's a little bit sour. That's kind of like the alcohol notes that you get. So for many people, they use it almost like a soda replacement. It's a little bit sweet, it's fizzy, maybe healthier than soda, probably. I'm not really an authority on nutrition. It may smell like vinegar, and actually a lot of my kombucha smells like not very good at all, but it tastes really good. Well, what is this bullshit rubber band? I'm gonna double do this. I'm putting the cheesecloth on top. So what this does is it creates a barrier through which oxygen can still transfer up and down throughout that. That's necessary for this to continue to ferment. But it keeps out the flies that have invaded my home from invading this and making it moldy and shit. If your kombucha molds, it's not good. So basically that's it. We have our new batch. We're gonna let that go for probably 3 weeks-ish while it does its initial ferment. After that, we do what's called a second fermentation. And this guy will probably be ready for the second fermentation probably another 2 weeks or so. This one actually has like a little temperature strip so you can see how quickly it's fermenting. The optimal range is basically 68 degrees all the way up to 86 degrees. The sweet spot's probably like 76, 78. My house is cooler, so they ferment more slowly at lower temperatures, which is fine. It just takes a little bit longer. But if you were up in like the 80s, for example, it might only take 2 weeks to get it to a nice place. So for a second ferment, you're gonna put it in an individual bottle, flip top bottle. Flip top bottles are important because they can maintain carbonation. So when they are put under the full lock, they'll actually keep in that carbonation and the bottle won't explode. For my first batch that I did, I flavored with a bunch of different things. I did a ginger, a plain, a ginger lemon, and a cherry. So basically you just chopped up a little bit of fruit and then threw it in, let it sit out for another week or so and hope that it carbonates, and then put it in the fridge. For the second batch, by the way, that first batch, it came out good, but the carbonation was super weak, and also I think I let it go too long, so it tasted more like vinegar and less like kombucha. But my 2.0 batch, which we have right here, these are all ginger flavored, and I literally just cut 2 pieces of ginger, popped them right in there, and they've been probably out here for a week or so, and these are actually carbonated and actually delicious. And they're like, the last batch was too dry, kind of too funky, and these are like relatively nice sweetness, and they just taste good. But I've not refrigerated them, so I'm gonna pour them on ice. All right, so I'm gonna actually run this through a filter, because although there's nothing wrong with consuming these big globby bits, it's not texturally pleasing. So let's listen for the pop. Oh! Well, that's more fermented than I thought, but no problem. That's the first time that's happened to me. So a couple ice cubes. You can see it's nicely fermented as it exploded out of the bottle. Give it a little mix. Let it cool for a second. So this is Phil's Booch 2.0. Best booch I've made.
That's extremely good. Yeah.
That's pretty good. Yeah, not too sour.
Yeah, it smells awful. To me, it smells like vinegar and feet. But yeah, so that's the kombucha process. The fact that 2.0 turned out relatively good, I need to put the rest in the fridge so that carbonation comes back down. Yeah, it encourages me to keep making it. So I'm excited that I can make this many at a time. This jar will make approximately 4 of these 16-ounce bottles, depending on how much is in there. I think the last one I did actually made 5. But yeah, that's kombucha. I think it's some hippie shit, but it's clearly becoming more popular. I enjoy it. Very important thing to note, when you're doing your initial ferment, you don't want to add flavors at that point. Like, don't put your berries, your lemons, or gingers then, because it'll become too fermented. It'll get weird, more chances for mold and shit. You really want to do that in your second ferment, because the flavor is going to be absorbed very, very quickly. And so unless you want it to taste too strongly, too badly, get too fermented, it's just a second ferment. So even, I just put a very small amount of ginger in that whole bottle. It tastes very strongly of ginger. So just think about that when you're working with infusions. You want a little bit of flavor, but not too much. So that's how I did it, and I'm excited to keep doing it. And maybe we'll do updates when I scale up and make, I don't know, 50 gallons or Maybe I'll make barrels of kombucha or something. That'll be fun. Let's review the process because we broke it up over too far. You make your initial batch and you let that ferment at that temperature range that we discussed about for approximately 3 weeks. It can go 4 weeks, it could go less, depending on how warm it is. When it's like has a good flavor, like a sweetness dryness thing for you, that's when you do your secondary ferment. So you're gonna bottle it into individual bottles. That's when you add your flavors, such as ginger, just a little bit of ginger, berries, whatever the you want to put in there. There's all kinds of recipes out there. That will sit out for about a week for that secondary ferment. And I also totally forgot to say, if you want more carbonation, you add more sugar at that point. A good starting point is a ½ teaspoon. So these have been out for like a week and they've just been more and more carbonated. That time it exploded. Some people have even more ridiculous explosions than that. So burp your bottles and check on them periodically. So 3 weeks for the big batch, probably 1 week for your secondary. If it's at a level of carbonara sauce that you enjoy, you can move it to the fridge and that'll cut some of the carbonation. So it'll stop fermenting and it'll just stay normal. Does that make sense? All right, that's the end of the show. Goodbye.